And good afternoon to everyone. We have come to, I don't want to say the bewitching hour, but I certainly want to say that we're here again, 3 o'clock Eastern. And I see my glasses aren't as strong as they might, but I see, is that Terry Olson on the screen? Absolutely. Well, I want to welcome you on behalf of the Association to Preserve the Eatonville Community. We're known as PEC. I am N.Y. Nathiri, the executive director of PEC, and it really is my pleasure to welcome you again to this an hour of Kwanzaa celebration. I want to note that my co-curator, Sydney Rose McCall, is monitoring the chat. She's driving with her family somewhere in the Midwest and does not have the ability to join us verbally. I'm very pleased, however, to note that she was able to facilitate a new relationship for our organization with Professor Daryl Stover, who is a cultural historian, folklorist, and who is going to really lead this discussion this afternoon on Ujima, collective responsibility. Before we actually came online, I talked with him about an editorial in the New York Times this in today's issue, and I really want to preface this conversation by referencing what Brent Staples wrote, because it really does, I think, have a direct or through line to collective responsibility and what we are obligated to do as individuals, writ large, but certainly as people of African ancestry. He talked about the Tulsa riot and about the forensic archaeology that had uncovered actually a mass grave site. He talked about the fact that this aberration actually was a problem and a circumstance and a situation from a couple of vantage points. One, the people who fomented or actually did the deed, the white people who murdered the Black people in Tulsa, were young men at that time who had become stalwarts of the Tulsa Chamber of Commerce, of the establishment. And it was not in their best interest to remember or to acknowledge or even to seek justice because they were the perpetrators. And on the African American side of town, it was such an abomination that there was even a fear in some people, in a number of people, to even remember what had happened, because it was so horrific. The court system, as he said, as Staples said, which was really infiltrated by Ku Klux Klan members, would not allow the justice system to acknowledge the great the great travesty, and lest we not understand or remember what the great travesty was, it was the murder of the people in what was called Black Wall Street. It was the destruction of people's property. It was destruction of their assets. Simply, as it was said, the white people were told, get a gun and get a nigger. So, it's just, so as we talk about the collective responsibility, what it means to really remember, what it means to commemorate, what we are obligated to do, I found it really a little bit of serendipity that should be the editorial in today's New York Times as we were going to be discussing collective responsibility. And with that, I welcome Professor Stover to take the mic.
All right. Thank you, Sister N.Y. Nathiri. Yeah, I think it's important within that context as you raise relative to that editorial and it providing greater insights, more recent information as brought about through forensic archaeology. What are the remnants of our people? Clear evidence of an action that destroyed a community. And you had a very rich discussion yesterday about about African-American communities, independent communities, and how they sustain themselves, how they are challenged, among other things. And so while we reference this editorial in the New York Times relative to Tulsa, we know that there were multiple incidents of such nature, and that yes, many of the individuals perpetrating such deeds were members of the government, members of the police department. So there is the clear practice that then puts this in the context of systemic racism. In that voice of understanding that, I raise the voice of our people as we move forward through Kwanzaa as a ways and means of informing and, as I like to say, fortifying ourselves. We are today celebrating the third principle of Kwanzaa. I will ask everyone, Habarigani.
Ujima.
And yes, that appropriate response is Ujima.
Ujima.
Which means collective work and responsibility. I actually have with me, and yes, you can go ahead and play. I have with me my son, and usually we perform together in certain regards. There is that representation of collective work and responsibility. So yeah, we engage in this sort of collective sharing with the community as a strong representation of multiple things. The intergenerational structure and functionality within the community relative to us sharing with you at this present time. But we also look at the sheer fact that during Kwanzaa, there is this notion of creativity, of kuumba, which yes, is the sixth principle, but bringing that forth in this context is important too throughout the celebration. I bring all of that to note to say that before I engage in this discussion, I want to share a poem that actually speaks directly to what was just raised. And it is a poem reflective of Ujima, collective work and responsibility, relative to us understanding that it's on us to maintain our communities. It's on us to maintain a village, if you will. That concept is a very strong concept, as you know, I'm sure every last one of us, and I'm looking forward to hearing when we engage in discussion, the representations of that village where you are right now, and what was the representation of that village when you were growing up. But this is a poem by Gwendolyn Brooks. Gwendolyn Brooks being the first Black woman to receive a Pulitzer for her poetry. Gwendolyn Brooks received that back in 1943. But Gwendolyn Brooks influenced so many other Black writers, especially other Black poets. But this is a poem of hers entitled Paul Robeson. Now, we think about Paul Robeson, we have to think about his oratory, his physical presence, his talent, his intellect. He offered up a powerful example for us. And so it is important for us to honor him, and Gwendolyn Brooks thought the same. But let me share this with you. That time we all heard it, cool and clear, cutting across the hot grit of the day. The major voice, the adult voice, foregoing rolling river, foregoing tearful tale of bell and barge, and other symptoms of an old despond. warning in music words, devout and large, that we are each other's harvest. We are each other's business. We are each other's magnitude and bond. And I'm sharing that out of the complete Kwanzaa. I pointed this book out on the first day of Kwanzaa, Umoja. And so I encourage you, it's put together by Dorothy Winbush Riley. But it is a very rich text in regards to who we are and very rich text in regards to celebrating Kwanzaa. But that we are each other's bond, we are each other's business. That collective work and responsibility is there. But it's also there within the context of the role that someone like a Paul Robeson played in speaking out for his people.
Would you, Professor Stover,
individual in that regard.
Yes, would you do this, please?
And so I think when we look at collective work and responsibility within the context of the examples we have down through time, and we couple that with our historical experience, there is clearly the consistent evidence of an oppositional force to our being, which is why that collective embrace and engagement is so important. The collective support of our businesses, the collective support of our communities. Being responsible within one's household is first and foremost, but then you expand that out into the larger community and amongst our people. The role that is played by the preservation of the Eatonville Community Association is reflective of that. There is within my community here in North Carolina, an actual husband and wife and others who maintain what is referred to as the Ujima Group Incorporated. They are who usually puts on the Kwanzaa celebration one-day event in partnership with the town of Cary. And they've been doing it for over 25 years. They saw that need to take on that role of providing what is an important fixture, traditional fixture here, in allowing for the community to come together. And I think when we start to look at coming together, a term that's embraced by the word Harambe, that coming together is needed even more so now than it ever was, because we find ourselves in very different and challenging times. We find ourselves having to look back and embrace the horrors of the past, but at the same time, the successes and sustainability. I think we have to embrace them both, but I think we have to use history as an example. I wear 2 Sankofa bird bracelets on my wrist. I've been wearing them ever since the 90s. They're from Ghana. The Sankofa bird, that Sankofa term is go back and fetch it. You do have to know your past in order to move forward. You should learn from it. And especially, there are certain things that we should be committed to not seeing happen again. We should take on that responsibility, because I think in hearing Sister N.Y. Natiri, she talked about collective responsibility. And that collective responsibility manifests itself in different ways. And we should ask ourselves, what are we responsible for? Who are we responsible for? What institutions are we responsible for? What communities? What family members? And the resounding response to that question should be a complex and multifaceted one. We should be able to understand that we have a responsibility to reach out and engage all of these facets of who we are as a people and be responsible for their sustenance, their nurturing, their uplift. A quote that Mary McLeod Bethune had. And Mary McLeod Bethune was an educator, big on education, right? In fact, I attended in middle school, right outside of Washington, D.C., Bethune Junior High School. And so her legacy is very important to me, this whole notion of education, my whole role as a cultural historian and a storyteller is tied to the example that she provided. And there's a quote that she has. Here we go. Her quote is, "Our children must never lose their zeal for building a better world." And that zeal is on us, adults, to hand over. That's one of those batons we hand over in establishing this sort of, if you will, Ujima consciousness, this collective work and responsibility consciousness that would fuel that zeal in our children to understand, yeah, it's on us to build a better world. Our children have been primarily the ones out in the streets during what we've seen, especially this year. They have already made a commitment, and that commitment says a whole lot for the job that has been done by the adults in their lives. And so I think they provide an example to us as adults that there is a struggle and a fight still going on. And there is a fight within them that is to be undenied. And it's our collective responsibility at the self-same time to be hoping for the best and for their safety in these regards. But at the self-same time, it's important for us to support and encourage how they've now taken on the role and responsibility of wanting to ensure a better world in which they will exist. And some of this, no, they're not responsible for. Some of it, yeah, we're not responsible for. But there's a lot we've been fighting for quite some time. So yeah, we've always had work to do. And that work is best accomplished collectively. That we have a shared responsibility in doing that.
Hi, Professor
Already
Stolberg.
have the Kwanzaa candles lit. The middle candle for
I'm going to
Umoja.
light that candle.
The first candle to the left, the green candle. Actually, I've got it reversed. The red candle for Kuji Chakalia, and then today's candle, the green one for Ujima. And so I think those candles, I thought it important not to have a candle lighting, but already engage in that practice. My family is gathered here with me, my son and daughter and son-in-law and 2 granddaughters. So we will have a further discussion relative to this principle within our own household. But I look forward to the exchanges that we will have as we continue this program. And I want to just give a big up and a shout out to my son for that wonderful kalimba accompaniment as I shared that with you to get our thoughts in one accord along the lines of establishing our collective Ujima consciousness, establish our collective work and responsibility, discussion and commitment that we will carry with us into the new year.
Right.
Asante Sana, That means thank you.
And to you, I want to thank you as well. Before we go into the general discussion, I would ask you to, just as you talked a little bit about the biography of Gwendolyn Brooks, for those who may not know of the Paul Robeson, exactly who he was, and if you would just take a few minutes, and then we'll go into the bringing in our audience, just so that for those who may not know, I've ever heard of Paul Robeson, but to really know the great intellect, the great creative genius that he represents.
Yeah, you should know that Paul Robeson's operativeness was primarily in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. He was an actor. He was a three-letterman in college, playing football and basketball. In essence, he was an athlete and he was an intellect. He played roles in many a Shakespearean theatrical production. He is in a vast number of movies that were produced in especially the 30s. He was a major world citizen, as he liked to consider himself. So within that context, he felt it was his responsibility to be supportive and embracive of all peoples and their reflective struggles on the planet. But more importantly, his own people here in this country. He fought very hard to establish an equitable society here in the United States, with great challenge to himself and his professionalism, in light of, because he was so outspoken, and isn't that always the case? These challenges surmount themselves when you're quite active and outspoken, to try to hush you, but he was not to be hushed. Not a man such as Paul Robeson. Why? Because he had a very big voice, a baritone voice. He had a voice that was so deep you could fall into. But he was a stage performer, a singer, and I think that the most important example he can give to us is this fact that he was a complex man of many professions and expressions. And so we should use that as an example, that all of us can be complex and of many expressions. I'm a historian, I'm a scientist, I'm a storyteller, I'm a poet. I am a father, a brother. I am a cultural elder here in this state that also embraces my Washington, D.C. roots. And so I think when we look at Paul Robeson, that example he gives us as one who was both creative, as a performance artist, an athlete, but more importantly, an activist for the people, is a good example for us to carry into the discussion, because he took on the responsibility of his community and the larger community, of speaking for it and wanting to see it better. So I think, thank you for that, Sister in one of the theory.
All right, so let us do as we have in the previous days. Our format is to first have that kind of overview and grounding, contextualization that Professor Stover has provided. Now it's the opportunity for those who wish to either speak on camera or who have sent in comments or questions for the chat. I'm very pleased to see that Miss Josephine Fulcher Anderson, Professor Cheryl Nelson, there are a few people who are continuing to follow us. I want to welcome their comments. I do want to acknowledge that Terry Olson, who is the arts administrator for Orange County, Florida, and who calls himself, as a matter of fact, an arts instigator, is on the screen. And just wanted, this is a time now for us really, Miss Tanya DeBose, who was a participant yesterday from Texas, from Houston, Independent Heights. So this is a time when we throw open the floor, so to speak, to have people make comments or make a point that they'd like to have the audience engage in. Vivian Gary is facilitating, so if there's someone who would like to, to come on to talk, please do so. Or I can try to read some comments from the chat. Yeah, I did see that Professor Nelson notes that Paul Robeson's home is Philadelphia. While we're waiting, I'll be glad to pick up the baton in terms of collective responsibility and how we at the Association to Preserve the Eatonville community see that. I'm reminded that on the first day that Sidney Rose McCall spoke about how she perceived so much of what we do at PEC as really embracing or representing the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. And I can say to you without any hesitation that in 1987, we picked up the baton of civic pride that is one of the cornerstones of the historic Eatonville community as we pushed back fervently against a community busting highway project that Orange County government was going to literally push through in historic Eatonville. We felt that we had no choice but to do that as an organization. As a matter of fact, we actually formed the association with 2 reasons. One, to oppose to support, as we said, support the opposition to the 5-laning of East Kennedy Boulevard from Wymore Road to 1792, and to support the preservation of the Eatonville community. We felt that we had to do that because Eatonville was one of the few remaining communities in the country, one of the few remaining historic Black communities in the country. In fairness to the people of Orange County, they had no idea of the historic significance of Eatonville. And I would say that it's not hyperbole to say that the decision makers and opinion shapers had never heard of Zora Neale Hurston. So for us, it was a matter of really taking on the obligation to say that no, you cannot, you should not think about inserting a highway into this community busting highway road project. It took us 20 years, a lot of advocacy, a lot of careful work, but we were able to make the case. And now people who ride through the town of Eatonville, beginning from on the east side, are able to really embrace and experience what small town is, what a historic Black community is. So I would say without a doubt that we have taken on that responsibility, and that frankly, Eatonville is not just a local asset. It is a national asset. In fact, it's an international asset. And so for us, that is a palpable way of expressing what Ujima means in the day-to-day working of living.
Yeah, for me, as a college professor, Zora is an essential element in a very popular class that I teach, Black popular culture from the blues to Afrofuturism. And when we start to look at our culture and the role that Zora Neale Hurston played as a folklorist, as one who collected and documented our culture, that example plays out, especially when I engage in the blues unit, because it's during that period, giving over from the 20s to the 30s, that women, Black women, were the first popular music artists of note, especially with the blues. But that music for us was not some concert thing per se all the time. That was right in the community. It was being performed on porches and at fish fries. It was performed in communities that sustained that sort of culture. And so it was through Zora Neale Hurston that, yeah, she was able to identify, what is the nature of this music? What is the nature of the stories being told? How popular is a particular song in a particular area for a particular reason? But the music also contributed to community. And I think it's important to realize that, our creativity is one other aspect of the bond, which was the latter word, excuse me, in that poem of Gwendolyn Brooks that I just shared. Our creativity is the bond that holds us together in great ways. And so Zora Neale Hurston saw the significance of our creativity and documenting it within various communities to be able to set the stage for providing an example of what community was, what creativity meant to a community, and to show that you actually had people who took on that responsibility role of sustaining traditions, in those particular cases, creative traditions.
I'm going to ask my colleague, Vivian Gary, to read some of the comments and questions that are coming in the chat. Will you go ahead and do that, please, Vivian?
Certainly. So Sydney has placed a question in the chat for everyone, for the audience and participants. What are some challenges that African Americans collectively and individually face in manifesting or sustaining their collective responsibility? What are some ways people can make a commitment to serve their communities?
May I just give kudos to PEC for establishing the example of a little bit of money from a whole lot of people. If we could take that mandate throughout our communities, we would be able to do marvelous things. It doesn't take one person to donate $1 zillion. But just like our ancestors in the Black churches that they established, particularly in the South, okay, if we could get $5 from 1 million people, okay, we could do marvelous things. So one action I believe is imperative to the sustainability of our Black communities is the investment of money. If we can't get around it,
That's right.
We have to give. And I remember my great-grandmother who established a church with her sisters and aunts in Granite Quarry, North Carolina in the late 1860s. And she would send a quarter, okay? Every week she would send a quarter to help with that church. So if she could send a quarter out of her widow's mite, just think what we could send out of the pocketbooks of those of us who are fortunate enough to have a nice salary. Thank you.
And Sandra McCall mentions in the chat as well that in addition to financial support, there's also your individual talents that you can lend to support public schools, charter schools, and boys and girls clubs.
Yeah. I want to pick up, I'm obligated to pick up on what Professor Cheryl Nelson has just said. I can remember when I was working at Cornell University in the late 1960s, there was a volume, I've forgotten the exact title, but it identified the fact that the African American economy was the ninth largest in the world. The ninth largest in the world. Now, I don't want to seem shrill. I don't want to seem lecturing, but I just it just amazes me about actually the wealth that we have, or let's say the money that we have, to which we have access, but in the ways that we are not being intentional. And I'm speaking now, I'm not speaking about the people who don't know. I'm not speaking about what you might call in Marxist terms a lumping proletariat. People who are, they live, but they may not be aware of the greater elements of life. But I'm speaking now about the people who have gone to school, who are not people that are subject, as Carter G. Woodson said, the miseducation of the Negro. All right. But I'm talking about those of us, when you say a million, Professor Nelson, it doesn't even need to be a million, but there certainly should be, I think, enough of us, and I'm speaking now really definitely in group, that understand that pennies make dollars, and dollars we're talking about what you can actually do with funding. And this is particularly the case with nonprofits. We've already heard the data that maybe up to 50% of the nonprofits that are here right now are not going to be here on the other side. And since Terry Olson is on the line, if he wants to send what the real statistic is that we can quote. But in order for PEC to survive, we are going to have to be successful with our cushion campaign. And that cushion campaign seeks to raise over the next 12 months $1.5 million, so that over the next 5 years, including 2020 to 2024, we will have a little bit of extra so that we can really ensure ourselves that we will be able to survive. So I thank you, Professor Cheryl Nelson, for throwing out that softball to me to hit, hopefully over the field. Thank you.
And I would add one thing. It reminded me of when I was in first, second grade, third grade, I donated 5 cents a week to my denomination's effort to build a college. And, 12 years later, I went to that college because I had helped build that with my 5 cents out of my 50-cent allowance or whatever it was. So I wanted to just emphasize that one feels ownership also and commitment when one contributes, even if it's a small amount.
Yeah, that collective responsibility in sustaining our nonprofits, and in this very specific case, the preservation of Eatonville community, there are many examples of initiatives where folks are given. Here, we just heard, such as yourself, giving and then being able to attend the institution that you helped build through your contribution. Going back to the example provided by Mary McLeod Bethune, what did she do? He made and sold sweet potato pies
That's
to establish an educational institution. And in essence, she set a goal and achieved it. She took on the responsibility of knowing how important education was, and that education was not going to manifest itself, not unless she and others made it so. The significance of preserving our own culture is no one else's responsibility
All right.
but our own. And so within that context, I can say right now that in Winer Theory, I am very much committed to, sustaining this discourse throughout the whole year relative to supporting that initiative that you as an organization have established going into 2021.
Vivian, other, all right. All right. Ms. Josephine, I'm obligated. You are an elder in terms of the practice of Kwanzaa and being in Connecticut. I'd appreciate it if you would take a little bit of time to share some of your wisdom with us this afternoon.
Habaragani.
Ujima.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. I'm just listening and just taking all this in. We are very excited and continue to be excited about celebrating Kwanzaa and teaching and sharing here in the state of Connecticut. And it becomes a challenge sometimes, but we continue to, work collectively again to get people who are interested and then to spread the word. For example, Wednesday, we will be going to via Zoom, we will be going to the mayor's, for the mayor's Kwanzaa. This is our 26th year, where we do a citywide Kwanzaa for the city of Stamford, Connecticut, where I work as a librarian. Again, collective work. No one can do anything by themselves. And so that's what we do. And we continue to be technical support for nonprofits and schools who would like to know about Kwanzaa. We go to the different schools when we were able to do so. But I especially want to piggyback on what our Sister Cheryl and Ms. NY said about investing. At the end of the year, of whenever the Spirit moved me, it is my responsibility where I intentionally give to PEC. So that is so important to me. I think about it, PEC as my family in need. And if I have that dollar, that $2, that $1,000, whatever I can give to help support PEC, I do that and encourage others to do so. I remember a few years ago, we went on a cruise, Zora cruise, and Ms. NY was talking to us. So it was kind of like side talking. And she said, we all can give something because our incomes, are much higher than what it was before. So even the 14 of us on this call now, if we commit to give X amount, that would be very profitable to PEC. I just pray to God that He continue to keep Ms. NY and her team to continue this, the Zora Fest and the importance of it. I get emotional. I just love coming to Eatonville, sharing, and I just feel like it's home. So you take care home. Collective work and responsibility. And it goes right into Ujima. Mm-hmm. We need to maintain our own. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. I want to also pick up this ball and acknowledge that we have such a wonderful core of volunteers at so many different levels. I personally believe that we are obligated to earn the trust and to earn the support. I don't believe that you just, in other words, your treasure, you should be a steward of your treasure, and you should be careful with where you make the investment. And so I believe that you must be transparent. People must be able to know with certitude that what they are investing is worthy, and then there must be content. And I just want to share with you that we wouldn't be able to do anything, really anything, if it were not for the volunteers that work with us in the humanities, the scholars, the people who come day after day to make sure that the work is done, the people who, no matter what they do individually, because of their own self-esteem, because of their own regard for themselves, that they bring the best to our organization. So that means if they sweep the floor, if they empty the trash, if they, whatever they do on behalf of their volunteer effort, it redounds to us. And I am so grateful at this time in my life to be working with a team of people, whether they are here in Eatonville, whether they are around the state of Florida, whether they are in Connecticut or Texas or California, in Georgia, wherever they are, that they, even before COVID, I mean, we work with people with the old technology, with the telephone, with the computer. We're able to bring that community together. So I just want to recognize as a group, as a cohort, that the people of Preserve Eatonville community are national and increasingly international. So just want to, acknowledge that. Anyone else who in the chat that we need to acknowledge comments or questions?
Mr. Irwin wanted to know how to send donations. So I've provided both the zorafestival.org and preserveeatonville.org websites for donations.
Absolutely. And in addition, we have any number of ways to separate you from your contribution. Has something happened to the screen again? They can still hear me though. All right. The most important thing, you don't have to see me. The most important thing is that you can hear me. All righty. And so what that means is if you do PayPal, you can certainly get to us that way. We do the old fashioned. Our mailing address is 344 East Kennedy Boulevard, Eatonville, Florida, 32751. Yes, you certainly can go. We have a newly designed website, preserveeatonville.org, and that is preserveeatonville.org. So absolutely. We are open. Our museum is open each day, Monday through Friday, from 11 to 2. If you visit, you'll see that we have materials, books, and souvenirs. We do all sorts of things to encourage you to, to support us. Now, as we are going to a close, and do I see that we're at 3:49? I want to talk with you about something that is fun. All right. Something that is fun, especially now if you like to, as we say, party, and if you love Zora Neale Hurston, and if your birthday falls in January. But our kickoff event is going to be Happy Birthday, Zora. She will be 130 years old if she were living on the 7th of January. And we are going to have a virtual party starting at 8:30 Eastern. It'll be a 2-hour party. We will have a DJ. We are going to have a raffle. We're going to have games. You know, it's a party. However, this is what you can do if you really want to be able to toast Zora Neale Hurston. Now, this is time sensitive. You need to do this no later than the 4th of January because we are doing a FedEx delivery. All right. So we say this is really, you know, big time, courtesy of Vivian Gary. This is her brainstorm, but I will say that it's a brainstorm that I really am very excited about. You can, for $130, it's a $130 birthday, of which we'll get $37. The $37 goes to PEC. Now it's 42, she tells. 42 will go to PEC. But listen to this. Isn't this great? You can order a half split of wine, or if you're not a drinker, sparkling grape juice, and you can order a cupcake, even a gluten-free cupcake. All right. And that will be delivered to your home by FedEx to your home, so that on the 7th of January, when we get ready to party, you can raise your glass. Now, if $130 is too pricey for you, but you still want to come to the party, there's a $30 donation that you can do. But we are really looking forward to some line dancing. We will have music that you can line dance to. Of course, we're going to be old school, so Marvin Gaye. That's right, Earth, Wind, and Fire. We're going to do a raffle. You know, some of you may have seen that lovely shawl, limited edition shawl that we have. We're going to be raffling off a Zora Neale Hurston tote bag. We're just going to have a lot of fun. So January 7, 8:30 Eastern. Remember, if you're going to get your your split, if you're going to get your package, and the wonderful thing is there's a piece of artwork. Your package is going to come with a lovely piece of artwork that's based on the graphic, the theme, you know, that sees Zora Neale Hurston and the pyramid, our graphic design. So please spread the word. Please spread the word. I am actually going to, by the 4th of January, you need to make that order, because we don't control that. That goes out to the vendor, and then FedEx does that. And I'm going to, since I'm going to call him out because he is on this Zoom call, and you know who that is. Those initials are T.O. Terry Olson. Terry Olson has a lot of contacts. He's a theater man. Zora Neale Hurston. Listen, I want you can have to do it in Orange County. This is mano to mano. Okay. I want you to let people know, because there are lots of people who I'm sure will enjoy this. So that's,
I haven't seen Miss NY this excited since in 30 years.
Because it's going to be, it's going to be fun.
I have my ticket, Miss NY. I bought my ticket yesterday. I'm going to give a few gifts.
I know you did.
I'm ready. Miss Cheryl is ready.
That's right. It's going to be, we do a lot of work. We do a lot of serious things. It's nice to have fun. And I am definitely looking forward to the 7th of January. Absolutely. I already have mine.
Right. Anyway, I just purchased my ticket, and I will share that I will be going. So with my my contacts.
Thank you so much. I mean, I just, it's a wonderful thing to be able to do this kind of thing. Now, before we run out of time, I want to talk with you about the wonderful program that we're doing tomorrow, which is Ujima. which is cooperative economics. The curator is Renata Sago. She is a journalist who is now an independent journalist, but she worked for a time at 90.77 WMFE. She also was a correspondent for Marketplace. She is going to be doing a program that looks at the challenges that returning women, and that's an expression that means women who have been incarcerated, the challenges that they are facing. And she will be featuring people not only in the state of Florida, but in Illinois and in California. She's been doing this work for some time, and I think that it's so important that we are able to, it's not just the people who have the good jobs or who are college trained or like that. We need to be able to be responsive to or open to hearing about others who are really trying to make their way into back into society. And so that will be on tomorrow. And just visit us at zorafestival.org to see the full calendar of Kwanzaa programming. Again, I want to thank Professor Daryl Stover for leading us in this effort. Want to thank my co-curator, Sydney Rose McCall. Want to thank Vivian Gary and Mr. Morse here, Charles Morse, who are staffing us behind the camera as we get ready to say, do we say Asante?
Asante Sana, that's thank you. But what
Yes.
we can say is you can say goodbye until tomorrow.
Yes, and what do we say in Kiswahili? I've forgotten. I used to know some of these phrases.
Well, if you want, you can say Mzira no way.
Yes, I'm sorry. Mm-hmm.
But you certainly want to, because I noticed that Ms. Nelson, Professor Nelson, has constantly been raising the notion that we should be engaging our other culture, and that Ma Rainey's Black Bottom is an important context since I brought up the blues.
Yes.
And so I want to echo her enticement and encouragement for those of you who have not seen it to see it. And if you have seen it, see it again.
See it again.
It's wonderful. And Chadwick Boseman, yes, a powerful actor. What he learned at Howard University in their theater department under Joe Selman and others is phenomenal, and it's reflected in his performance in that August Wilson play.
All right. Well, last words. I don't know if Tanya DeBose is still with us. Want to certainly acknowledge her participation and of the McCall family, the support that you have given us, and your entrusting of your Sydney Rose McCall to us. I want to acknowledge Mr. Norman. I see his name on the screen, and he has been with us, I think, for at least 2 days. All righty. So we are in terms of honoring the time. We want to say, come back tomorrow, 3 o'clock. And remember that after the first of the year, these Kwanzaa programs will be on the Zora website, so that even for people who were not able to be here, at the 3 o'clock time, you can let them know that they will be able to see and enjoy, hopefully, what we have done. By all means, when you visit the website, sign up for the newsletter. We do the Hurston Herald, and on the website, you can also see under newsletter, you can see the different issues that have been published since September of 2020. All righty. So with that, I
want to say thank you for inviting me to be a part of the Eatonville community, a part of the wonderful association and its initiatives. I want to thank you on behalf of my family, especially my son, Darius Stover, who was able to accompany me today on Kalimba. I will be consistently involved and encouraging and maintaining my membership in the Eatonville community as you move forward into the new year. And I look forward to the birthday party celebration.
All right.
Zora.
We embrace you. Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Thank you all. Take care.
Take care till tomorrow.